Hey guys, I'm Shyrshadi, and I am bringing you episode 1 of StarCraft Breaking the Barriers. This is a gold level analysis and replay. The original plan for the series was to go in order of rank, so starting at bronze and progress our way through, but because of the format of the show, it doesn't really necessitate that order. I can go from gold today to bronze tomorrow to diamond tomorrow and back to platinum the day after if I wanted to. Because we're going to be primarily covering information that applies to Gold League, although there will be a little bit of detail added above where Gold Leaguers would normally be expected to execute that would be usable by higher level players, specifically in the build order that I have provided to go with this replay. So what we're going to be looking at first is what a gold focus looks like. For me, getting from silver to gold involved really point number 1, which is the opening build order, getting your first 2 minutes of the game ironed out. Whether it's a Nexus first into 2 gateway, if it's a 2 gate opener like you see in PvP, or if it's a regular 19 Nexus, which is the most popular opener. So once you get that nailed down, you'll be able to progress farther in the game. You'll have more army and more things in general. Second is probe production, which the number given as a benchmark for most players is 60 probes at 6 minutes. In the demo I did versus an AI, I think I got to 56, so even I could still use some improvement in that regard. Tech pathing is another one, and that is going to be talking about tech choices, talking about complementary techs. For instance, Robo and Twilight go together very well, and transitions from one tech to another, which again is a little bit more of an advanced thing, but gold leaguers need to start thinking about it, because when you have 2,000 gas and like 500 minerals, you can warp in archons. If you don't know, or even don't think about building a Templar Archives, then you don't have archons, you don't have a way to spend that money. And then supply blocks, which is something that plagues us at all levels. My magic number is 62 in this matchup. If I don't get supply blocked at 62, I don't get supply blocked again until I get into the hundreds, just because it's a mental check with me of knowing when to build extra pylons and being able to build them when I'm being pressured. And that's usually when I need to be defending pressure, is when I don't build those 2 pylons and all of a sudden, supply block. So we're going to be getting into our first replay, which is a replay sent in to me by a gold Protoss named Anesthetize. If I said that right. I think that's right. But we're going to be getting into the first one, and we're just going to look and see what he did. We're going to be playing this on level 2 speed for right now, just because not very much happens in the beginning of the game. But what we do see is we see a little bit of money, just a little bit over 100 minerals before that first pylon goes down. But the pylon does go down. You'll see the money gets up to about 200 before the next gateway starts. Usually you want to have a probe going before you start that gateway, just so you have a little bit of farther production. He goes ahead and gets his assimilator at 16, which is good. 14 pylon, 16 gate, 16 gas. You have a 19 nexus, but he hasn't scouted yet. He's just still building probes, which is fine. Now at this moment, at 19, he's building another probe and he realizes, oh, I need to go send in a probe for my nexus. So he goes a little bit over 400 minerals. His nexus actually starts at 20 supply instead of 19. His cybernetics core doesn't start until 21 supply. And then he goes ahead and builds his pylon before his second gas, simply because he's at 22 supply and needs to not supply cap. I get it. So one thing you have to look at is, in this opening build order, it's very important to get your timings right for the very beginning of it. If a pylon is 10 seconds late and your gateway is another 10 seconds late and your cybernetics core is 10 seconds late, that means a Reaper can be in your base for 30 seconds before you have anything to answer it with, which is why this very beginning opener is so important. So moving on from there, we do see he is consistently building probes. This one probe is sort of hanging out, not really doing anything. He transitions his probes into his natural gas, main gas geyser, after a little while. He starts his mothership core. He starts a zealot. He starts his warp gate. I don't particularly enjoy zealots early in the game unless you scout the absence of a barracks in your opponent's mineral line, or opponent's base rather, or if you're going to be pylon rushing, then you need as many units as possible in the early game. So one thing we see here is he's microing this zealot trying to kill this SCV. Nothing's building, just the warp gate research that he's getting. He's not building probes, he's not building extra gateways. And this is something that plagues a lot of players, including myself sometimes, where you're not able to multitask. You're just focusing so much on this one little thing. You're trying to make this zealot kill this SCV, you're trying to get this bunker to go away so you don't die to whatever you didn't scout, or whatever your opponent you did scout and didn't react to, or maybe just completely misread, as in my case when I see a lot of things that look like one base and it's not. Rip. And you realize you have almost 700 minerals, and you're not spending any money. He has 700 minerals. He's not building probes. He's sort of kind of just trying to micro this to depth. If we look and see where his camera is right now, you see he's just sitting right here. And then he realizes, okay, I gotta make probes, and so he starts making probes. He's gonna come into his main base and realize I have a ton of money, so he's gonna start 3 gates at once. He's gonna start a robotics facility because, oh no, I forgot to start tech. And then he's going to tell it to have his army move around a little bit. He's going to have a pylon come up in the main base, 2 pylons come in the natural rather, so he doesn't get supply blocked. Pylons are a little bit late, but he's sort of kind of playing catch up from early on when he wasn't multitasking very well, which I get it, as gold player that is a very difficult thing to maintain. So he warps in his warp gates. He's going to keep making probes. When he's not being bothered, his macro is actually not bad. He's actually a pretty solid gold player right now. He's just building units. He's spending his money. He's going to get a forge. He's going to whip in some units. He's going to get a Twilight Council in a minute or two. He's going to build it. And what you notice, though, is he doesn't start his upgrades. So he's built the units, he's built the structures, he just kind of forgot to use them. So he at least knows what he's doing as far as production. He's already got his Nexi hotkey, he has his mothership core on a separate hotkey from his army. He's moving a probe at 5:45 to go take a 3rd base. Good timings. He's making 4 pylons because he's been supply blocked for a few seconds and didn't realize it. And so he's now compensating by trying to spend all his money. He's building a whole bunch of gateways, but wait, there's still a probe at his 3rd base, and he hasn't built his nexus yet. So it's been sitting there for almost a minute at this point before he actually gets to build his 3rd. So it's just the sort of free ball that is build orders most of the time for players. It's like I'm just kind of building stuff because I don't know when I should be building, what I should be building, and my builds are not very good. It's like, so he goes to look at his 3rd base and is like, he still hasn't built his 3rd. So he starts his 3rd base a minute and a half after he sent his probe over here to do it. Which I get if you're being pressured or whatever, but it's just he didn't think about it. He just kind of forgot about it. So he's just building units, trying to spend his money. He's built an immortal. That's good. His robotics facility is hotkeyed, which is excellent. He's building 2 stargates. Okay, so he doesn't know what his opponent's doing. If you notice his vision, he hasn't ever moved across the map, so he's not entirely sure what he's playing against. He's just trying to cover all the bases at once. And he's getting attacked now. And a little bit of a move command, a little bit of missed micros. He's trying to get his mothership core in position to overcharge. But at this point, if you just look at the supply, he's built so much stuff that he just has more than his opponent. And so even though his opponent has upgrades in the form of STEM, he has Marauders and Marines, just good units in general that usually shred gateway armies. He has so many gateway units that it really doesn't matter. And that's an amazing thing about Gold League and even Platinum. If you just have more stuff than your opponent, you can win games just by the virtue of having more. And then later you have to reprogram yourself to know what to build as opposed to just building more of it. So what I want to do is I want to both encourage the building of just more stuff, but also building the right stuff. So if we go back into this replay and we'll finish it out at times 4 speed. We're going to look real quick at his probe count. At 9 minutes, he's sitting at 52 probes. He just kind of quit building probes. He's about half mined out in his main base. He's still mining to his 30. He's just transferred a bunch of probes over there, so that's good. You see the main order of the workers. So he's got a few more workers that you can transfer, but not a big deal. The idea is you want to be taking a 4th base, which is exactly what he's doing. He's taking a 4th base when he should be, but he doesn't have the workers to saturate what he has already. So he just needs to focus on building probes, building pylons, building units. That said, knowing how to build all of these things is very important. And we're going to go into a replay in just a moment where we look at how I do it in Diamond. As slightly less than ideal as it is, it's still a build order that I use almost every time I play versus a Terran, that I do modify based on my scouting. and adjust to one base pressure, adjust to different tech choices, etc. But I go into the game with a clear-cut plan of what I want to do. And that is pretty much a necessity for every player ever, is to go in with a plan and have an idea of what you want to build, and he wins the game. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into a replay of me versus an AI. And we're going to look and see how I did it a little bit differently. And I created this build order on this very map, on Defender's Landing, to show what it looks like on the same map. It's actually different spawn positions. I was not as lucky as I'd like to be in that regard, but it does work out. So we come in and we see very similar stuff. I just GLHF out of automatically. It is a AI player. So the first pylon I build right at 100 minerals. Continuing to build workers. My gateway comes down. My probe moves over just before I have enough money for it. Gateway comes down almost at 150 minerals. Gas comes down at 75 minerals. So I send my probe across the map. When my probe is going across the map, I'm looking for one of two things. I'm looking for, is there barracks in your base? Are you building an expansion? That's really all I need to know. I want to know if you're building gas. I want to know if you're building buildings in your own base. If there's not a barracks in your base by the time you get there, sending a probe as you start these buildings, they're probably not building their buildings where they're supposed to be. They're probably building their buildings outside of your base, which requires you to identify with this probe. So we're going to speed it up a little bit. But I am going to come back and show my base. What happens is after I get my 16 on minerals, I rally it to gas. The first probe that goes into my gas geyser is also the probe that builds my nexus, because it comes out, it touches the nexus, and I'm sitting at 275 minerals, so that when the probe gets to the natural base, where it's supposed to be, I have 400 minerals. Now, as long as you send a probe down at 275 minerals, I'm not going to be picky. You send it at 275 minerals. When you get there, it'll have 400 minerals for you to place this nexus. The idea is you're trying to get this built as cleanly, as crisp as possible in this very build order. And then after you finish that, you rally it back to your gas geyser. That one of those probes will build your cybernetics core on 20. You'll build your second gas on 21. I'm actually a little bit behind in building mine because I was looking at my scouting probe. And then you build your second pylon. So if you've done it right, if you've done this opener right, your benchmark is when your cybernetics core completes, your pylon completes, you have 3 on each gas and 16 on minerals, and you can start building your mothership core. That's how you know you've done it right. Because you start your mothership core, you start your first adept, and you notice my gateway's rallied into my natural because I want to see if he has a Reaper coming. My probe didn't stay there long enough to see if it was a Reaper or a marine opener. So my adept is going into my natural mineral line to make sure any Reapers don't kill any probes in the natural. I will have this mothership core in the main base. The mothership core finishes, I hotkey it to what is actually my back button, which you can't see because of my overlay, to my back button. And I put it on patrol, because a mothership core takes a long time to accelerate. If you have it on patrol, it doesn't. That is a little bit of a more advanced mechanic, and I will talk about that at a later date. But for right now, I just rebound my patrol hotkey to the tilde key, which is the one to the left of your 1 button. So it's easier for me to do. And then if I ever have to overcharge, I just double tap my back button, F, click pylon, F, click pylon. But anyway, I have my robotics facility already on the way. I'll back up just a little bit to where you see that go down. So, adept pops. I have 100 gas. I'm grabbing my probe and I'm building a robotics facility. The robotics facility is my choice of opener. You can build a Stargate, you can build a Twilight. But the idea is as soon as you have the amount of gas you need, if I wanted to build a Stargate, I'd have to wait for 150 gas. As soon as you have enough gas, you want to start that tech building immediately. Because you want to be able to have what you need when you need it, and the sooner the better, without cutting economy. Notice that my chrono boosts on my Nexi. I'm going to consistently chrono my probes until I have 2 base saturation and I get to the next part of this build order. So coming up here at 330 is when you put down your 2 gateways. So you build a total of 3 gateways. So you're going to build 2 additionals. Build your 2 gas right around there. I usually build, so basically the rule of thumb that I do is when I have 8 probes in my natural, I go ahead and build 2 gases. Because that's just how I learned it watching the build order that I learned this from. This is a build from Stats, a GSL player and IEM champion. So you'll saturate these 2 when they finish, and then at 3:30 you build these to have a total of 3 gateways. When this research finishes for Warp Gate, these gateways will be done. So after this robotics facility finishes, I build an observer and I rally it immediately across the map. When I have enough money, I start a robotics bay. Now all these things about having enough money, all these things happen as I'm building probes with Chrono. So I'm not cutting probes to build any of this stuff. I'm going to build 2 pylons as my warp gate finishes. You can wait until right after you warp in. One of my warp ins is delayed slightly because I did elect to wait. And notice also, I'm fully saturated and I'm still building probes. Didn't cut any probes for this warp in. When a warp in is just a little bit delayed. And when you warp in your army, move them into your natural mineral line. 4 minutes and 30 seconds is the fastest I have personally seen a warp prism into my base. And not a warp prism, a mine drop into my base. So by having your units here in the natural, with your observer popping, you can stop any mines that drop here. Your mothership core here in the main base can overcharge mines there. You see, I've got the pylons built in a triangle around my nexus. The first 2 pylons always go next to my gases. The next 2 pylons I build, one is always behind my mineral line, one is always in front of my nexus. I build my next 2 pylons for vision at the front of the base to overcharge in case I see something coming in with this observer. Something tries to unload at the edge. I just overcharge it with my mothership core so my army has time to move into position. I'll build another pylon here. I'll build another pylon up here. Just random places, seemingly, but it gives me vision in my base. At this point, when my robotics bay finishes, I'll start a Colossus. And I'll chrono that. That's the first time my chrono moves off my probes, is when I start building my Colossi. So see, I've started this Colossi. It's being chronoed now. I'm still chronoing my Nexus until I have enough money to start my extended thermal lance. And so as soon as it starts, I start chronoing that. It's important to start your Colossi before you start extended thermal lance because you need the units faster than the upgrade a lot of times. And a lot of 2-base pressures will actually start hitting now. So what I'm doing now is I'm warping, after my first Colossus starts, I warp 2 sentries. Because Guardian Shield is amazing. I didn't start using sentries for Guardian Shield until I was in Platinum, and it hurt me in getting there, because it's just so good. What happens is Guardian Shield acts as though you have 2 levels of armor. So say you have no upgrades, Guardian Shields protects you like you have +2 armor. And versus Terran, it is amazing. So I've got 2 sentries. I usually will get between 2 and 3 depending on how I'm feeling. Usually just 2. And I'll take my 3rd base over here about 5:45, which is exactly when our gold player sent his probe down to take his expansion. And we have 28 probes right now. At 6 minutes, I'm sitting at 56 probes. So I cut workers to build this Nexus, and I shouldn't have because I've got the money for it. If I had continued to build the probes, I would have had, even without Chrono at the time, 60 workers. Because I maintained probe production up until about 5 minutes and 30 seconds. So one thing to do as a Protoss player or any player is go into your replays and see when you were building workers, see why you stopped building workers, and see what you were doing that you stopped building workers. In my case, I'm building a bunch of production, and I just kind of stopped building workers for a minute. So see, I still should have been producing, but I'm not. You see no probes in this production. I start making my next Colossi, I move my Chrono Boost off of my Rebel Bay onto my Nexi, but you notice I'm still not building workers. I'm still not building probes. I'm still not building probes. I'm building a pylon. I'm getting +1. I'm still not building probes. I don't know why I wasn't building probes. To be completely honest with you, I couldn't tell you. If you look at my vision, I'm still not building probes. I'm so focused on getting my upgrades started, and I realize, oh, 3rd base is done. I'm not building probes. Let me move some probes. I'm building 3 at a time. I just went through a period of about 40 seconds where I wasn't building a probe. That's 4 probes out of 2 Nexi that would have been done. Almost 6 probes. And I would basically be fully saturated on this base and just done building probes if I hadn't stopped. So that's, when you know you're doing it right is when you finish your bases and you have workers. Obviously, I wasn't doing it right. The idea is every time you build a probe, you're spending 50 minerals. If you're building 3 probes at a time, that's a gateway. So if you stop building, if you get your probe saturation finished by like 7 minutes, 7.5 minutes, then you can stop building probes, you build extra gateways, and you go kill your opponent. It's about having the economy to support the production, to support the army that will raffle stomp your opponent. That is literally StarCraft in its purest form. So I personally go into Blink and +1, get a couple extra gateways. I stay on 3 gateways for a long period of time. When I get my third base down and it's about halfway done is when I build gateways 4 and 5 with my Forge and my Twilight. When I finish building probes, I build extra gates, build a Twilight Templar Archives, and just build units. Just start building units. When you're 3 Colossi finish, I like to build a Warp Prism so I can go harass. I wasn't particularly concerned about it in this game because it is versus an AI and I wanted to make sure all the build was finished properly. So when Templar Archives finishes, you start Storm. You warp in however many Templar your gas will out, which in this case was 3. You build extra pylons, just consistently build pylons. You see I'm floating pretty close to my pylon count right now, so I'm going to go ahead and build 2 more pylons. I went over here and I built more spotter pylons. These, when these die, you're going to get supply blocked, so don't count on spotter pylons as part of your ability to not get supply blocked. Those are just to give me vision. If he flies in this side of the map, I'll see it. So as I've continued to make things, I'm going to make immortals out of my robo facility instead of Colossi because I already have 3. 3 is the minimum number you want. You see, I saw this army coming with my observer, so I started rotating my army around. I Guardian Shield as soon as the army attacks me. These units are taking extra damage because they're not in the Guardian Shield, but all the units that were here were taking very little damage because the AI only has it on +1 attack, +1 armor for right now, +2 attack just starting with the build that the AI is going for. But I have the ability to take that fight as though I had +2 armor, which means their units are not doing nearly as much damage. It's always ideal. So my preference usually when I do this build is going to be Blink into either Charge or Glaives. If I see tanks, I go Charge. If I see mines, I go Glaives. Because Charge lots onto mines are not all that great. It's kind of annoying, kind of painful. But I will still get Charge in the late game and transition into that. And because I'm spending a lot of money on High Templar and Archons, so I'll just make Charge lots because I'm going to have a lot of extra minerals and I want to save the gas for spending gas. So at this point, it's literally just whatever. I've already gone through the build part. I'm getting my 4th base. I'm getting 2-2. I started my 2nd forge when my +1 weapons finished its upgrade. Oh, that's why. I told it to build 5 gateways. My probe gets stuck, and I wondered why I only had 2. That's why. Because my probe got stuck. Feels Protoss, man. So that actually happens quite a bit. It's really annoying. And I never actually saw it until I was looking at it not going down. So anyway, I'm just throwing my army at him. Whatever. I've got so much supply it doesn't matter. I storm. I can A-move. I am Protoss. Feels good, man. So it's just a numbers game at this point. I have so much more money than he does. He's got Vikings to kill my Colossi. I don't have enough Stalkers to kill his stuff. So I'm just like, whatever. Storm. But it boils down to getting to this point. When you get enough army, you can just throw it at him. You don't have to worry about it. Building extra gateways, so you have the ability to warp in, and he's basically dead. I got these Stalkers ready to come and be anti-air. I'm just going to feed back Medivacs because I can. It's all about the first 6 minutes of the game. If you're able to get everything else done, which is why they have the rule 60 probes by 6 minutes. Because if you have a good economy by 6 minutes, you're going to be able to get through the rest of the game without having to worry. You'll be able to take extra bases, you'll be able to switch techs, you'll have enough army to fight, as long as you have an idea how to spend your money. At the point where I paused the replay, I'm sitting on 1,700 minerals and 1,500 gas. But that was when I started fighting and started microing, and I tried to build extra gateways and it didn't work. The idea is I spent all my money up to that point, and now I can just build a bunch of gateways and warp stuff in and go kill him, because I have an economy strong enough to do it. And Obviously, under normal circumstances, when you'll be being attacked by the Terran player or whatever player is attacking you, trying to harass your workers, trying to do economic damage, you have to be able to defend that while not letting your macro slip. And that's obviously a challenge, and it gets to be more of a challenge as players get even better, and those little macro slips of I'm not doing anything while I'm microing this handful of units on my front line, or I'm trying to stop this mine from doing damage, so I gotta pull my probes, and you just kind of stop macroing and then you just float money. And that'll get to be not as big of a deal because you'll get better at it, but it becomes more of a deal as well because the person who is harassing you is macroing behind what they're doing, so they're going to just have more stuff. And again, it's more or less about having more stuff. I know this is a really in-depth replay, it's a really in-depth guide to what I'm doing. I'm going to reference this video as a guide to that build as well, just because I go so much into what I'm doing. I'm going to provide this replay for free as well to anybody who's interested in having this replay. It's a very straightforward, very defensive focus Protoss versus Terran build that I just happen to like because it's also very flexible. You can get Disruptors out fast, you can get Immortals if he's trying to tank push you on one base. You just have a lot of options. But anyway, special thanks to Anesthetize for the replay for episode 1, and I will see you guys in the next episode.